You're on the Conspiracy Show. So you tell us about yourself.
I live in New York City. I've had this apartment for almost 30 years, and I'm a victim of electronic harassment.
For the uninitiated, what is electronic harassment?
Electronic harassment takes several different forms. And in my case, there was a couple who were both deceased in this building under horrific circumstances. And when he moved into this building, he had wired this whole building with cameras all over the place for the men who owned the building at that time. And I heard him and his wife. And they said that I had to give up this apartment, that I had to bring the key to this apartment to their house, the key to my car, the key to my little cottage in New Jersey, and I had to walk out of here with nothing and start my life all over again and just leave everything with them. If I didn't do that, they were going to turn off the electricity, do all kinds of things in this apartment, and I would have no way of explaining this to people in any logical way.
Derek Robinson is president of a human rights organization called Freedom from Covert Harassment and Surveillance. Derek, welcome to The Conspiracy Show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
What is electronic harassment?
Electronic harassment refers to victimization by a variety of technologies, surveillance technologies, as well as mind control technologies that are being used today covertly.
Tell me about your organization, FFCHS, Freedom from Covert Harassment and Surveillance.
There are a variety of scenarios that we are dealing with as a victim community. We are a support organization to those who find themselves victims of mind control technologies and surveillance technologies.
Derek, are you personally a victim of electronic harassment, or have you been in the past a victim?
Yes, I am, Richard. I am also. There is surveillance, 24/7 monitoring and surveillance, whether I'm at home or out in the community. The voice-to-skull technology, or the synthetic telepathy, also called the microwave hearing effect, which is basically the projection of the human voice into one's mind. I receive that on a nightly basis, daily basis. There's also mind-reading technology that is being utilized in my case. There's also other types of technologies that assault the human mind and body in a variety of ways that cause any number of effects, from pain induction, nausea, dizziness, headaches, irritation, a number of assaults to the nervous system, irregular heartbeats. Sometimes it's sped up quite quickly, dramatically, or sometimes it slows to a crawl, it almost stops. And there are many instances where people have to be rushed to the emergency room because of these physical effects. Isolation is one of the main protocols. And once that individual is isolated, they are often harassed further to the point of what we see as sometimes suicide or even homicide.
The type of electronic harassment you just described is known as voice-to-skull torture. Explain a little bit about what that is in more detail.
Once these people introduce themselves to you, when they start in with you, they rotate with each other and they speak to you 24 hours a day.
Synthetic telepathy, that's when the human voice is broadcast into one's mind.
They told me that they were going to come up the fire escape, send somebody up the fire escape, and that they were going to break the window, and then I just had to leave the apartment. And that's how the whole thing started. I was totally, totally petrified.
I don't doubt their sincerity at all. They are simply misunderstanding what they're experiencing.
Are you looking for more in this world? Then we
are looking for you. The big-hearted, the bold. Those started to hear these voices, did you first think that perhaps there was something physically wrong with you, that perhaps these were auditory hallucinations?
I thought that I was thinking a lot of things. Once this starts, it never ends. The cast of characters might change, but you have this 24/7.
Derek, forgive me, I have to ask, but what would you say to a skeptic who might suggest that you, perhaps other alleged victims, are suffering from some mental illness? How are we able to differentiate?
Well, that's actually a very good question because a lot of the things that we complain about are symptoms of mental illness. When you talk about hearing voices in one's mind, if you say that to a psychiatrist, you're automatically diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic.
So are they imagining these symptoms? Do they have some psychological disorder?
When you're looking at many of these claims, essentially what you're seeing are very similar symptoms to paranoid schizophrenia, delusional types of delusions.
Which is why so many people experience this and are kind of at a loss of what to do. They feel that they are losing their mind, and those around them that they explain this to feel the same way.
I know that it isn't schizophrenia because the voices are all directed towards one situation. And after a while, they were reading from a prepared script.
Most people who have these sorts of disorders, they're not drooling lunatics you see on film. They look like ordinary, everyday citizens. They look like you or me. They're our neighbors. They're our family members.
You find that your whole audience of people, your loyal friends, poo-poo everything because they don't think this is really happening. And it will only happen if you're by yourself.
Isolation is one of the main protocols, and once that individual is isolated, they are often harassed further to the point of what we see as sometimes suicide or even homicide.
And that's when people commit suicide or try to get help for a condition that most people don't understand. And what happens is they end up getting sedated and treated for a medical condition, which becomes a mental condition. And it's actually just a form of harassment. At the same time, the harassers are laughing at the whole thing.
The problem is that they're not providing evidence that we would need to verify their stories. They're just sort of saying, I have these symptoms, and I think that this is happening to me. And when you ask them, why do you think this is happening? Well, I don't know, or it's some conspiracy, or I'm just a victim, or they come up with some answer, but it's never a thing that brings a solution.
What's the purpose of this? Are they trying to drive you crazy?
Yes. It's after a while you start thinking, this can't be a coincidence. This is so bizarre that wherever I'm going, this other person is going.
David Lawson, who is an investigator who actually went underground and observed these groups for about 13 years. He wrote a book called Call Stalking. And basically, he describes their methods and their purpose as the intention is these groups for about 13 years. He wrote a book called Call Stalking. And basically, he describes their methods and their purpose as the intention is to destroy the target. These groups for about 13 years. He wrote a book called Call Stalking. And basically, he describes their methods and their purpose as the intention is to destroy the target. For about 13 years, he wrote a book called Call Stalking. And basically, he describes their methods and their purpose as the intention is to destroy the target.
Ben, we know with a great deal of certainty that the government and certain intelligence groups have targeted U.S. citizens for some sort of experimentation. So why couldn't the claims of these alleged victims be true?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I don't have any doubt at all that there is technology available that could mimic some of the complaints and symptoms that some of these people are experiencing.
This technology has been in development since the 70s when there was a first demonstration by Joseph Sharp and his colleague and engineer Mark Grove. They worked at the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research.
Yeah, didn't they do experiments back in the 50s? Yes, there. It seems pretty clear that there were some experiments along the lines of mind control in the 50s and in the 60s and thereon.
The experiments that Jose Delgado was doing, you can see some of those on YouTube. That he was able to, with a radio transmitter, control the actions of a cat, to lick its fur, to be aggressive. He even used the expression, he could use a cat like an electronic toy.
That doesn't answer the question as to why, number one, they would be continuing to this day to operate on ordinary citizens with no particular motive. Why? Why are you so important that you think that...
This is an urgent warning to all investors.